Hello, welcome once again to Breakfast All Day. I am Christy, and that is Matt, and that is Alonso. We have so many documentaries this week. This is the second of three we will have for you this week, right? Yeah,
Indeed.
three, a lot.
And the second one on Netflix.
Yes, this
Oh,
has
and
been
let's
out.
not forget the finale of Westworld.
Is also a documentary.
Ripped from the headlines.
It's very lifelike. It does take place in downtown LA. I was very distracted by the locations. But this is, which we'll talk about on our Patreon, but this is our second of three documentaries today. It's on Netflix. It's been out for about a week or so now. It's called A Secret Love. Alonso, please tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, part of Ryan Murphy's Netflix deal, and perhaps you might like it better than Hollywood if some people are not digging that show. Anyway, this is about two women who have been together for decades and decades. Pat and Terry met in 1947. Terry was a professional baseball player in the women's baseball league that became the basis of a league of their own, but for real. And, you know, they lived together for a long time and spent, many, many years, completely closeted to the people they worked with and then later to members of their family. Like the film kind of opens with them coming out to Terry's nieces, well into like her, 80s, basically saying like, Pat and I aren't just friends who live together, like we're a couple. And it's sort of about the two of them reaching the point in life where they have to perhaps sell their beloved home, move into assisted living, and, whether or not how much that's going to involve their respective, or rather Terry's family. We don't really get to see Pat's family. And, we learn about Pat's relationship with Terry's family in terms of like, do they really care about each other, or are they just sort of like nice to each other because they have to be? What I think is interesting about this movie that I really wish they had gone into more was you find out the extent to which these two women had to live secret lives because it was the 20th century in the United States. And so for various reasons, they had to keep their relationship a secret. And what happens when you've been doing that for so long that you don't know how to stop doing it? When marriage becomes legal and they don't immediately sort of leap into the idea of doing it, and they have to sort of talk to family members about what their resources are and what their options are and what their plans are, how much it's hard to give up on that level of keeping things quiet when you have had to do it as a matter of survival for most of your entire life.
That, I think, is one of the key parts of this movie is that, it does spend, and I agree with you, I wish you would have got, like, it talks about how in Chicago, lesbian bars and gay bars too would have been rated, and then they would print everybody's name in the paper. Right. And so it would ruin people's lives. And so they never went to those bars. Right. Pat and Terry never did. And, Terry talks about how her dad had kind of figured it out. You hear what I think, I should go back and look at it, but I'm pretty sure it's like Pat's brother says something terrible about like, oh, she just needs,
yes,
right, a big black dude to do it.
So
right.
abhorrent.
But they have this relationship that goes on for decades, and they talk about, having been careful, like, we worked together, but it was all business. We wore skirts, we dressed like women, and early on in the movie, you see one of them calling about, getting some, oh, I'm her cousin, I need this information. But the key part
that's in the contemporary part, not even like back in the day.
Right. But one of the key things is, there's this, so Terry has this one particular kind of favorite niece that most of the family wants her to move up to Edmonton. Terry's into it, Pat's not. And so the niece, I can't remember her name. Diane comes down, and the movie is directed by one of Terry's like grandnephews, right? And I'm fairly sure it's probably Diane's nephew, or I'm sorry, Diane's son. Mm-hmm. Because what that means is you get access to these family discussions. And so when Diane comes down and there's this big argument about what Diane has now found out about certain information, and she's begging them to let her in and tell her things. And you can see that these women have, for 65 years, have had to keep everything real close.
Yeah.
And Diane's got, you know, and outside of this relationship and knowing what we know and what you were talking about, you can see that Diane has no understanding, and not from an evil point of view. She just doesn't comprehend what she's asking these women to do as far as opening up their lives to her, because they have spent almost all of their lives, you know, keeping secrets. And when Diane's like, no, you need to share this stuff with me. And it's like, she might as well be asking them to breathe lava. Like it's so alien to them.
There's one essential scene, I think, where Diane, you see somewhat of a light bulb go off, the scene with the love letters. But like, for the most part, I feel like it's so much of the movie is her not getting it and the rest of the family not getting it. And I wish the movie sort of like, you know, not that films have to sort of lay all this stuff out for you, but I just wanted like a little more of it being sort of laid out to explain, because even obviously like Pat and Terry don't consciously know they're doing it. You know, they're just in this mindset of this sort of survival mode that they've been in for 60 plus years.
It's their default.
Exactly.
It's all they know. Yeah.
But down, even with the people who are close to you. And it's like, and so I think that's sort of the unspoken theme of this film that I wish they'd just spoken a little more. But beyond that, in terms of like looking back at their past together and you know, the whole thing, all the sort of the baseball stuff and how that league worked and how they met, and you know, when, you know, the whole thing about working in Chicago and putting on the lipstick and just like, you know, being, you know, passing. And you know, there's a scene where a family member takes one of their photo albums off the wall. She's like, women and gay men, I don't know who any of these people are. You know,
right, it's like, the whole other family.
Yeah.
Right.
And they have that nice friendship with the longtime gay couple, you know, the two gentlemen who've been together. They're like a little posse.
And those guys too, like when they're talking about, well, like marriage is the thing now, should we do it? And the gay's like, oh, why bother? And it's sort of like, you know, it's such an alien idea to them that it was ever going to be a thing that they never allowed themselves the notion of thinking about it. Right. You know, and so of course they just like kind of slough it off.
One of the things that's kind of low key amazing in this is like the almost casual way they throw things, you know, that they kind of discuss things, right? That, you know, for instance, you know, they're going through all those letters and Diane says something to the effect of like, they're all torn. And Terry's like, yeah,
Alonso was alluding to that.
I didn't want to tell that part, but
you know, it's just that's
but
so.
You just did, so thanks.
Sorry, that's just kind of amazing, right? But the other fun thing is like it's also this great look at this couple that has been together for 65, you know, and then close to 70 years, and seeing that spark still there, right? Like, you know, that when Pat's like, hey, can I get a kiss? And Terry's like, I'm thinking about it. Maybe.
They're
right?
flirting.
Like they're still flirting with each other.
Yeah.
Yes. But, you know, and it is extremely specific because we do follow their love affair for all these decades. And, you know, because it is family who has made this, you know, they've opened up their lives and their hearts. And there's this wealth of archival footage, and all the stuff about the baseball league is really cool. It makes me appreciate A League of Their Own all over again. Mm-hmm. But there's also a universality to the sensation of growing old with somebody and the fears that accompany that in terms of like, what are we going to do if one of us gets sick? And as, you know, and we see them over the course of several years, you know, up until recently. And you see that, yeah, they're mentally still very sharp, but, you know, physically they have issues. The very first shot of the film is Pat on the phone with Terry's doctor, you know, because she's having some health problems. And I think we're not there yet, but, you know, I think we have maybe perhaps parents or friends who you've got to look out for each other, and how scary that is when the only person you've been with your entire life, you know, might not be 100% or might not be there someday. And just the worry that accompanies that. You see almost a fear in Pat's eyes because Terry has been her entire life for so long, and to see her deteriorating physically is you know, terrifying. And we feel that.
Right. As Pat herself is deteriorating, right? Like, you know, Pat's got to help.
She's a little bit younger though. She's 5 years younger.
5 years younger, but like, you know, you see Pat helping Terry in and out of the bed even early on, right? And like Terry can barely walk and Pat's helping her around. But it's like, Pat's not in great shape herself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's no knock on her, but it's just like, hey, Pat's also in her late 70s, early 80s, and could probably use something close to that amount of help herself. And it's right. Yeah, I mean, it's over and above her worry. It's like, this is a lot of work.
Yeah, no, I think, no, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's also quite touching when, when they do come out, or they even recall what it was like to come out to their family members, they all still get really choked up by it, because and I found that quite touching, that even in retrospect, recalling that moment of like, of course I love you, and I want you to be happy. And the purity of that is quite moving.
Yeah, no, believe me, I think, it's not uncommon when you're in the closet, you think about the worst case scenario and you prepare for the worst case scenario. And when people who are close to you tell you, no, I love you and it's fine, and that's great. But, you are ready for the worst, and that's just how you operate. And I've certainly been there. And I think everybody who's in the closet has been there.
And one of them got that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask Alonso if you wouldn't mind expanding on that a little more. Is that something that you and or Dave experienced in coming out to folks?
Yeah, I mean, speaking for myself, I think, I came out my last semester in college just in case my parents disowned me and my education would be paid for. That did not happen, but I thought about it. It was a possibility. I had a contingency plan for it. And yeah, I think you're right. This is a lovely movie about aging. I think it's also really kind of just a fascinating look at, I think we tend to forget how recently in this country it was much, much worse for queer people. Not that it's perfect now, but it used to be a whole lot worse. I mean, and maybe I've told this story on the show before, but when Dave and I got married in 1997, it was not legal at all anywhere. And we only did it because it never occurred to us that it was ever going to be legal in our lifetime. In 1997, we didn't think it was ever going to be legal in the United States for the two of us to get married. So we might as well just do our, dog and pony version and whatever. And, within 20 years, it became the law of the land. So you just, it's hard to look ahead and think that things are going to get better. When you're in it, you just think, well, this is where we are and this is where we're going to be.
I was thinking about you and Dave a lot while I was watching this, and that's going to be you in 40, 50
10 minutes.
Helping each other out of the recliner.
Yeah.
It was very sweet.
Sure. Definitely. Yeah, no, this is a really lovely film.
Okay, what are your numbers? I'm saying 8.
What did I say?
You said 7.5.
7.5, yes.
Okay.
I think that's what I said too, right?
No, sorry. Alonso says 7.7. I apologize. Matt said 7.5.
Yeah.
So our number is a 7.7, right? Yeah. Some 7.8. Anyway,
yeah,
it's in there. It's very
Absolutely.
sweet though. It's quite touching and very sweet, and it's on Netflix.
Yeah, this is another one kind of like Driveways. That's like this is a good comfort movie, right? Even though it's right. Even though there's some tragedy to it, just about what they had to go through. Ultimately, the tone of it is
it's
really
a love
sweet.
story.
Yeah, it's a love story.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for listening. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and mosey over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We are recapping television, including the finale of HBO's Westworld Season 3, and we're talking about Mrs. America on Hulu, and there's lots of other fun stuff exclusive to our members. We hope you'll check it out. Christy, what's happening in basketball land?
So episodes 7 and 8 of The Last Dance are airing on Sunday on ESPN. It's funny, the director, Jason Hare, just recently finished cutting episode 9. Because This is not supposed to come out later, but they pushed it up for the demand to,
on account of no sports.
Yeah, they were hoping to time this with the NBA Finals, which of course did not happen. And so they pushed the whole timetable up. So they were having to cut this most recent episode, sending Vimeo clips back and forth to each other, which is crazy. You guys haven't seen it, but it's it jumps around in time, and there's this incredible wealth of archival footage and interviews. So this is not like a simple linear pathway this takes here.
Wow.
So episodes 7 and 8 are on Sunday. Chaz Ebert will be joining me. My boss Chaz will be joining me because she was in Chicago during all of this. And as she says, this is like the rare sports thing that she actually followed. So I look forward to getting her thoughts on being in Chicago. Knowing Chaz and Roger, they probably went to Bulls games and actually met Michael Jordan at some point. I would not be surprised. So we will hear her insights next week.
Cool. All right. Take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.